jump 20%. The already high cost of sugar is tripling. If you invest in the stock market for security or save money in the bank, you continue to see the dollar drop in value while your weekly food bills increase. So what are you going to do? Get as much food now as you can. With these problems you're facing, eFoods Direct has no choice but to extend the free shipping another week to October 9th. Free shipping buys more food with shipping dollars. Call 800-409-5633 or go to efoodsdirect.com/Alex. Call 800-409-5633 or efoodsdirect.com/Alex. You can bet your life on eFoods Direct.
Coast to coast, direct from Austin. You're listening to the Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
All right, folks, we are in commercial-free overdrive. More and more, I have to have a rule that if I leave callers holding because I pontificate, I'm just going to go into overdrive so I get to you. I want to go to Lee, Ralph, Ben, Frank, Mark, Don, and a bunch of others that are stacked up in there. Let's go to you straight away here. It's Infowars.com, overdrive on Sunday. Lee in Texas, thanks for holding.
Alex?
Hey, buddy.
Hey, man, I was there on Friday. I got there about 4 o'clock in Dallas, and it was a good event. There was about 50 people when I first showed up. It was hilarious. The first thing I noticed when I walked around was that they had these signs, these private property signs, all over the place. So I talked to somebody who actually wasn't with this protest, and I said, how long are these signs all say private property? And they go, well, they weren't up here 2 weeks ago. And people need to understand this. They just don't get it. The message has to be simple in the Fed. It has to be simple in the Fed. It has to be simple in the Fed. I mean, people all over don't understand this Federal Reserve. Nobody really understands the Federal Reserve. And
it's a group of gangsters masquerading in the uniform of the federal government. It's very elementary because it's so simple, people don't get it. Here is a bank building that looks like a federal building with all these eagles and seals on it, operating this way. These are the hijackers. These are the crooks. These are the people setting up the world government, my friend.
Yeah, it's so elementary. So, you know, I've been talking this weekend and sending some of my little videos I took there. And, you know, it's kind of funny. You got people that are yelling at you to get a job that are driving down the street. And that's pretty hilarious, considering most of us have 2 jobs. And then,
well, they've been taught just because you're protesting now, they think you're Occupy Wall Street. They think you're in front of a federal building. They don't understand. You're going, no, we're here trying to wake up the Occupy Wall Street from being misdirected to the real enemy. Because, again, it's a process of awakening people.
It absolutely is. Then, as I'm standing there, I see the Occupy Dallas people walk up. Now, I don't know why they were put across the street from us. And they start chanting at us. I'm not exactly sure what they were saying.
Well, they're angry. I mean, they've got MoveOn.org people inside telling them we're bad. It's like the MoveOn.org, we confirmed in San Antonio and Dallas, tells them that's evil. The Federal Reserve loves you. And they tell them those are bad men. Get them. And some of their people, once we talk to them, go, no, you're good. And we're like, yes, listen, I want to explain to you who the narcotics traffickers are. They've been caught. They're in that building. It's called the Private Federal Reserve. See the private property sign? But it says Federal Reserve. And then we're like, we want to be your friend. That's why I love seeing all the great people there, black, white, Hispanic, old, young. The globalists hate that. They hate, I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. They hate people coming together. I appreciate your call. Great points, Lee. They absolutely hate us coming together against the real enemy. They want to divide us on left, right, and all the rest of this, and race and religion. You know what? If you want to fight over religion and race, that's your issue. But we can do it later after we've beat the globalist. You know, again, they survive off of playing us off against each other. Let's talk to Ralph in California.
Hello, Alex.
Welcome, sir. Thank you for holding.
You know, I want to really honor you for what you're doing, but my eyes were open a long time ago, And then when I first looked at Aaron Russo, and then became a part of Gary's troop. Last name, what's his name?
Franchi.
Gary Franchi. Sorry, Gary Franchi's troop. Okay, but what I want to tell you is something you've never talked about, is the Nasara agreement, the law that has been passed, and it's up for...
Yeah, the National Emergency Establishment Act or whatever. I have not found that to be real legislation in the last 16 years of being told every year it's going to fix everything. And it's just some weird urban legend that floats around. I know we could bring the country back anytime we wanted and bring it out of corporate receivership that's fraudulent. But I just haven't seen anything proving that Nasara is real.
We make in our minds to be real will become reality.
Well, that's true. I mean, if we like a piece of legislation, my only issue is the folks always pushing it say it was passed secretly in Congress and it's always a year later, everything's going to be fine, and it's never happens. It's kind of like the folks say Planet X is going to kill us next month, and it never comes, and I've been saying that for 12 years, and I'm the bad guy because I don't buy into Planet X. But I'm not poo-pooing what you're saying about Nasara. It's just that it's not in the Library of Congress website, thomas.loc.gov. Appreciate the call. Got to move fast now here. Ben in Tennessee, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hey, Alex. It's great to talk to you again. It's funny, the day you call in, we're kind of on the same wavelength. I just wanted to say real quick, I have a slight, it's not really a disagreement, but I think the globalists really, the reason we're seeing such a quickening and an acceleration toward this open corporate financial system that will be a function as a dictatorship is because they have done such a masterful job at dumbing down and distracting the public.
Yeah, that's right. The public wants to go off lazy symbols, easy, quick. And so I try to give people a nuanced calculation and breakdown of what's happening. And folks are like, you're either with the Tea Party or Occupy Wall Street. You're either with Republicans or Democrats. Let's rob some rich people. And they just don't understand, and that's why they perish.
Right, and the paradigm is really their master. It's kind of their skeleton key that unlocks every door they need to. But the one other thing I wanted to mention, it's been a fantastic show today in discussion. Herman Cain is coming to speak in my hometown of a little 5,500 person small town in East Tennessee this coming weekend. And so I know over the years I've listened and I've heard you've got a lot of callers from Tennessee area. So if there's any people in East that can get to East Tennessee, it's or Rogersville actually. He's going to be there doing a Q&A either this next Friday or this next Saturday, and I'm going to be there to hopefully get a question in about him being the head of the Kansas City Fed.
Well, I would ask him, he says go visit him. My guys were a half mile away videotaping the Kansas City Fed, and security goons came with guns and threatened him. I mean, that's all on video. We covered it on InfoWars Nightly News Friday. I mean, it's a ridiculous joke. The Congress can't find out what these crooks are doing. I appreciate your call, Ben. Good to hear from you. Frank in California, you're on the air.
Hey, Alex, you give hope to a hopeless situation, but I do want to ask you one thing. How soon can you get Lindsey Williams back on your show? Because he was making some wild claims for 2012, and I think he needs to elaborate a little bit more in detail.
Well, I really like Lindsey. I think he's a good guy, but, you know, it takes a couple hours to really get to the meat of what's going on with him. And I have had a lot of requests for Lindsey, probably 2 to 1. The people that don't want to hear him on the show. And he does seem to really balkanize people, but we should work on Lindsey coming back on the show with his predictions and what his sources are telling him.
He's a great guest. I honestly do hope that he's wrong about a lot of those predictions, but I think that maybe some of the things might come true, because, I mean, the economy is just really, it's like a rubber band. It just snaps back and forth, and it's not really making any progress. It's sad.
Well, I mean, look, we've got corrupt interest on Wall Street who are insider traders who like to manipulate it up and down. That's how they fleece people. And that's why you see it like a casino going up and down right now. Totally manipulated, totally fake. I appreciate your call. Let's go ahead and talk to Mark in North Carolina. Mark, thank you for holding. Welcome.
Hi, Alex. I'd like to talk about a couple things if I can. First, I'd like to talk about Occupy Asheville, which I went to myself. Admittedly, I could only tolerate it for a couple of hours. You know, like it's like here around the country, I got the feeling of socialism spreading around, and that really wasn't my thing. I wore my In the Fed T-shirt, and I felt out of place. So that's what's going on here in Asheville. If anybody wants to, organize and occupy the Fed in Charlotte, should I give my email address out? You think that's safe?
Sure, you should do that. But that is what's happened. They've emptied out the big tax-free foundations, Ford Foundation, Acorn, you name it. Admit they're involved. And they tell their folks in the meetings, dress up normally, go out and say you're not affiliated, promote socialism. And the Federal Reserve is on TV going, we agree with the socialism. We'll get the middle class. Don't worry. Raise the taxes, get the richie. And they're like, we'll get all the money. We'll destroy our enemy now. And so they just send out these well-meaning people that were promised a socialist utopia. And they're told the problem is there's not enough socialism. And it's very, very sad. And everywhere I went, they had the Occupy Wall Street folks, at first come over and think that we were against them. And I'd have to explain to them, we're not your enemy. We want to be your friend. But George Soros is a bad man. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. And I'd like to say I just about mostly agree with most of the things you say, Alex. And if you think it's safe, I'm going to give out my email address for Occupy the Fed.
Well, I don't know if it's safe, but if you want folks to contact you, go ahead.
Okay, that's Mark FBN, MARCFBN at yahoo.com. I'd like to occupy the Fed in Charlotte. There's not very much things going on with that right now.
Good, let's go. God bless you. Something else, go ahead.
I love most of what Ron Paul has to say, but, what he said in the 2008 Fox News debates, he sort of backed off about 9/11, and that's a really important issue to me, and you should check out what he said on.
Well, Ron Paul can't 100% prove that one way or the other, so he's focusing on the core issues of restoring the republic, cutting back the different agencies, cutting back the military, getting rid of the police state, restoring the states' rights, and that'll deal with the problems. Ron Paul's really our ambassador to the general zombie public to wake them up. Thank you. Mark in Oregon, you're up next. Go ahead.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, Alex. You answered my prayer when you went into overdrive, because what I had to say was really just for you, because you have an inroad into Ron Paul, basically. You know the man personally. And, Alex, actually, let me just take 60 seconds here, and then you can comment. Would that be all right with you?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, speaking of unity, Alex, at this time, Ron Paul is potentially the single greatest unifying factor for these American times. Personal appearances at many or even just the larger demonstrations of protest at the Federal Reserve branches would certainly supercharge his candidacy. And the publicity of a Ron Paul speaking tour would force the Illuminati media to cover in a significant way Ron Paul and whatever he stands for. He could also educate these people that are out there on just what you've mentioned just a few minutes ago about people need to be educated on what is really obvious, should be obvious to all of us, but they have been dumbed down to a degree. This exposure would almost guarantee a Ron Paul victory. No,
I totally agree with you. Ron Paul needs to get more aggressive. He's done a great job, but he needs to get more aggressive. And if Ron Paul would go out himself in bullhorn Federal Reserve locations, you would see 5 million people do it, and it would make this George Soros hijacking. Again, they called for people to rally. The establishment did. Real people showed up, and when the train rolled in that the globalists had called, they hijacked it. It isn't totally hijacked, but as far as the media is concerned, it has been hijacked. If Ron Paul would simply sick people on the Federal Reserve, they would come out in the millions, and it would take over this globalist-triggered fake revolution calling for collectivism.
Alex,
but Ron Paul has said go after the Fed. He said go after the Fed. So, but I agree.
Yeah, Alex, one other quick thing. The dream ticket, of course, would be for Ron Paul to leave the Republican Party, which itself makes a positive statement, and then to take Jesse Ventura's offer to be his running mate. and to do this as soon as possible with Governor Ventura on the campaign trail with an early declaration of the vice presidential running mate. That would in itself create